Good morning, everybody. Today I thought I would do my reflection on the Saturday readings and the Gospel reading according to Matthew. It says, John's disciples came to Jesus and said, "Why is it that we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not?" Jesus replied, "Surely the bridegroom's attendants would never think of mourning as long as the bridegroom is still with them. But the time will come for the bridegroom to be taken away from them, and then they will fast. No one puts a piece of unshrunken cloth onto an old cloak, because the patch pulls away from the cloak, and the tear gets worse. Nor do people put new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins burst, the wine runs out, and the skins are lost. No, they put new wine into fresh wineskins, and both are preserved." So the message of Jesus always is a message of peace. He doesn't want to get into a confrontation with the Pharisees, and because they know already, they know what the signs are, what they're supposed to look for. They know what Jesus is talking about, but he knows that leading to confrontation, it's just going to make things worse. So he explains it to them in a way that they will understand that his teaching may not be for everybody, but what he's doing with his disciples, it's working for them. And in the reading from Amos, the first reading, we have the Lord promising that the land that he's given to us is the land that will be ours. It's the land that we will plow in and reap in. It's the land where we will plant vineyards and we will dig gardens and eat the produce, and we will never be uprooted again. It will be our country. And how in the responsorial psalm, the Lord speaks peace to his people. It's a voice of peace for people and for his friends and those who turn to him with all their hearts. It says, "Mercy and faithfulness have met, justice and peace have embraced. Faithfulness shall spring from the earth, and justice look down from heaven. The Lord will make us prosper, and our earth shall yield its fruit. Justice shall march before him, and peace shall follow his steps." So in our church too, you have that where we have very old traditional priests who like to say the Mass in Latin. They have old ways of thinking, but we also have new teaching coming in. It doesn't take away from the old, but it builds upon it. It's the same thing with us with fasting. The church doesn't expect me to fast if I'm sick, if I've got anxiety, if it's going to be impossible for me to do that fast with a good heart and with a good intention. So there are things put in place to help us so that we can do something else. If we can't fast, we can do an act of kindness or an act of mercy, or we can offer a different prayer. There's many things, like people say, "Oh, the church is so harsh on people, it's so rigid," but actually it's not. If you know the teachings and if you understand the teachings, it's the same with people who can't go to church. We have many people that take the Eucharist out to the hospitals, to people's homes. And one of the ladies at my church, she had asked me if I can get involved in that. I said to her, "You must talk to Father Larry, because I do what Father tells me. If he says it's okay, then I can come with you to the hospital. If he's not okay with it, I'll just focus on doing the reading." So there's many different ways that, I don't like going into people's homes the same way I didn't like doing it with Primerica. I don't like going into people's homes. So there are people that go into people's homes, they take the Eucharist to them, and there are people who they mix business and the personal. So they are friends, but they are also business partners. For me, I keep them separate. I keep my business life at work, and I do my work, I complete it, and my home is my home, my home is my sanctuary. But there's always that thread of peace running through the Gospels, and Jesus' teaching was not accepted by all. It's rejected by some people. But he doesn't go about looking to confront them, looking to challenge them. That only comes at the end, before the crucifixion, where he has to defend himself. But he's doing everything openly, he's doing everything publicly, he's doing everything that we do in our lives. And in a way, for women, that's what we do. I mean, if we do healing, if we do praying, we do it at home, and we tell people, go to the priest, go and tell the priest, or go and show the priest. We don't take on the man's role in the church. We don't do that. So we have our own circles for reflection. We have our coming together as spiritual direction leaders. We do things in circles of women, but we don't take on the man's function and the man's role in the church. There are ministries where we all do the same things, whether it's altar service or the Eucharistic ministry or reading the word, and all those things changed over time. Before, the women, we never even used to read in the Mass in the church. Those things changed in the 70s and with Vatican II. So there's a lot of things that have changed. But for me, I like those readings for today, because they are readings of hope, they're readings of comfort, they're readings of understanding that sometimes if you take something like, if somebody's grown up their whole life thinking one way, and then you say, this is the way to do it, obviously it might be such a rupture for them that they can't cope with it. And they'll just end up having a mental breakdown, or they'll end up just taking their life or doing something else. So those teachings that Jesus brought in, they may have been rooted in the Old Testament, but people didn't want to believe it. They didn't want to see it. The same way there are things in the church that help people like me, people who are no longer 100% healthy, who have days where the weather affects us, days where the humidity affects us. It doesn't affect other people. People who may have grown up by the coast, who live by the coast, who are used to the sea and used to the humidity, they won't be affected like someone like me who grew up in a landlocked country. So people cope with different things in the same way in the church. And I think that's what Jesus was saying. I think he was saying that there are different ways, and this is our way. We are doing this. I am doing this with my disciples. And when I'm gone, when I'm taken away from them as their leader, then they will mourn for me and they will weep for me. But while I am here and I am with them, they are not going to mourn, because they know who I am. That's what I think Jesus was saying in that gospel today. And I think it was a very hopeful gospel message, and the message of peace. When we put on the armor of light, if you see when light strikes something, how everything lights up. When we had our power cut here, when they were working on the building, I came up through the stairs, and just as I reached my door, the lights went out, and it was completely black, pitch black. Luckily, I had my phone with me, so I pressed the phone, and that little bit of light on my phone helped me to find my keys and open my door. I had my keys, but it helped me to find the keyhole to put the key in. If it's completely black and it's completely dark, we have to wait until the right moment to move forward, where we can see that little bit of light. And often we say as spiritual directors, we wait on God's timing, we wait on God's helping us. And when we are looking in the same direction, when we get that confirmation, then we can move forward. It was the same thing when I didn't get the support here for Wits University, for the initiatives that we wanted to do. I had the support from Waterloo, I had the support from Wits, I had the support of the chancellors and the senior leaders, But the lawyers got involved and they put a stop to it. So we waited, and then in the end they said to me, oh, they decided they're not going to do this. So Wits is now running the fundraising and everything from New York. And whatever I do for Wits, I don't get paid for it. It's volunteer work. The same way I help in the church or with the One Campaign, I don't get any money from that. I do it because I want to try to help things better, because I know how hard things were for me, and to try to build bridges. So that's how I reflect on the Gospels, and that's how I look at them. And that message of peace, that message of you won't have to keep moving from country to country, from firm to firm, from place to place, tossed about like a vagabond with no roots. I mean, if Zimbabwe was okay, do you think any of us would have left? None of us would have left. We loved our country. We loved it very much. It had vast irrigation systems. It had production of tea, of coffee, of maize, of every kind of fruit and vegetable. For a small country, it was really a fantastic country. So it's different when you come and you start over, and you're starting from scratch, and you're trying to build trust, you're trying to build relationships. How are you going to build that trust if you keep getting small contracts here and there? And people are pushing you from pillar to post, from one place to another, long-term unemployment. Obviously, you're going to get affected like I was. Obviously, you're going to have stress in your life if you don't have any income coming in, you don't have stability, you don't have your own property, because you have to look after somebody's property the way you'd look after your own. But that's how it goes. I don't just ignore what's happening in Zimbabwe or South Africa, because at the end of the day, I was born there. So I try to help from where I am in Canada. And I help here for my community here, but I also try to help them there. Because there are many people who end up coming here with very high expectations. They think that, oh, if you get in here as an executive assistant or an HR manager, you're going to be able to work in that field right away. And it's not the case. The same thing happens to everybody that comes here. And with me, after I left TD Securities, after they laid me off because they didn't have a position, it was very, very hard. And now we're going through the same thing. People can't get work. So like everybody else, I'm applying in America. Because if the Americans can use my skills and pay me well, then why not? Because, I mean, they have all these systems in place, the point system, you have to have this much money to bring in, you have to prove you're professional, you have to prove your degrees, and then when you come here, they won't even give you a thing to pack boxes, a job to pack boxes. You have to take jobs doing what I did, painting, taking out the garbage, doing any cleaning the toilets. You have to do all that, and they pay you minimum wage. So it's very, very hard. So that's the promise of the gospel for us, that when we are brought in, we are made citizens. This is also our country now. So I look forward to things changing for me. I pray that they change for me, because it's a long time. Other people who have come here after me have done better than me. And if you ask people, oh, why is it? What is she doing wrong? They'll say, she's not doing anything wrong. We just didn't have the opportunity. So when is that opportunity going to come? I don't know. Is it going to come here? I don't know. But I know that I've done my best. And if they're going to treat criminals and drug addicts and prostitutes better than they treat me and give them all the support, then that's up to them. But I'm not willing to lower my standards to fit in to a society that doesn't value me. I'm not willing to do it, because I've worked very hard to get my education, to get my degrees, to get my qualifications. And yes, I want to live a peaceful life. But at the same time, I'm not willing to lower my standards. I'm not willing to say, yes, it's right what the Liberal government did, bringing in maid, the medical assistants dying, saying that, oh, it can even be there for children. When children who can't even make their own decisions, yes, they can choose. Or it can be there for people with mental health issues that with some support, people could live lives that are flourishing. Or selling drugs like popcorn. Or closing the churches and keeping the beer store open. I'm not going to lower my standards because I don't believe in it. So that's the way I look at it, and that's how I take that message of Jesus, to stand strong in my own faith, and I ask him to help me to do that. And I do that every day because it's not easy sometimes.